Well, with this nice Sunday we have today, June 21st, I want to share with you the numbers we have for the city of Sao Paulo regarding COVID-19. That's very important. I'm picking up the numbers that, at least in my opinion, reflect exactly what's going on with the number of cases we have in the city of Sao Paulo. I'm not looking at people who have been tested. I'm not looking at as the number of deaths. I'm looking at the number of hospitalized people. As I have already explained, this is a fixed number. It's a fixed percentage of the whole cases we have. So let's check what's going on, because that gives us a very clear idea if things are getting worse, if they're stabilized, or if we going down the slope. So June 1st, campaign hospitals were fine. We had 430 people at Pacaembu with almost 2,000 beds available. And in Pacaembu with 200 beds, we had 180 people there. Where are we now? Anhembi with almost 2,000 beds, 259 people hospitalized, almost empty. It's a little more than 10%. Pacaembu with 200 beds, only 38 occupied. Again, this is 20%. So these both hospitals, campaign hospitals, are empty. That's very good news. Now let's watch and see the numbers for the city of Sao Paulo regarding hospitals that are operated by the city, public hospitals. Because with Einstein, Sírio-Libanês, Oswaldo Cruz, intensive care unit beds are available, absolutely no worry. It's more or less 70% vacancy, no problems. But if we want to check the epidemic, we need to check what's going on with the people. And people, of course, when they're not insured, and this is the biggest part of the population, they go to public hospitals. So if we check the rate of hospitalization in public hospitals, we have a very good idea if we're stabilized or not. June 1st, we had almost 1,800 people hospitalized. Now we have 1,825. So almost 3 weeks later, June 1st for June 20, we have around the same amount of people hospitalized. This is very good. That means that we're not having more cases, at least not in the city of Sao Paulo. Then if we look at people who are in intensive care unit beds, June 1st, 740. Today, yesterday, 733. Again, a little less, but it's almost the same. 740, 733. It's not a huge difference. On ventilators, on June 1st, 479. Yesterday, 385. So that's perfectly fine. And the occupancy for intensive care unit beds in public hospitals in Sao Paulo, 60%. So that means that we're in a very stable situation, not going up, not going down, but stable. And we still have a lot of vacancy if we have more sick people. But it doesn't seem to be so. 3 weeks is a lot of times. If the curve was going up, we would have a lot more people hospitalized in public hospitals, because this is what really matters. Now, let's check a little bit some numbers that I want to analyze with you. First, when we talk of COVID, everybody's so worried that we need to understand what numbers mean. Let's understand the numbers. How many suicides do we have per year? How many people commit suicide? Almost 1 million people die of suicide each year. This is from World Health Organization. To be precise, 800,000 people die because of suicide each year. We've had up to now 470,000 deaths with COVID. So that gives us a good idea. Almost a little bit more than what we would have with suicide, and we still have them. How many deaths do we have every year because of respiratory diseases? Well, you'll be surprised to know that it's 4 million. 24 million. So in half a year, we're almost finishing June, that means that we have 2 million people who die from respiratory diseases. We've had a quarter of this regarding COVID. Just to give you an idea of the numbers. That's very important because otherwise we don't understand. And when we think of 800,000 deaths by suicide, we have to understand that we estimate that there's a 20 times more attempts of suicide than people who really die because of suicide. That means that we have around 16 million people who try to commit suicide, and almost 1 million die because of the attempt. So that gives us an idea of what's going on with numbers. Now, here comes my question. Why don't they speak about this all the time on the news? I've seen Global, I've seen New York Times counting and even giving names to the people who died in the US because of the epidemic. But I've never seen anybody say anything about respiratory diseases or suicides. And suicide is a horror. Can we prevent this? What can we do to stop this? It's enormous. This is just to give you an idea of the numbers. Now, continue. What's the mortality rate for this disease, this new disease? Well, this is something that is astonishing because it changes so much that I think we have absolutely made an enormous mistake with mortality rate. What's the mortality rate for the world? 5%. USA and Brazil, 5%. Russia, 1.3%. This is more than 3 times less. India, 3%. Great Britain, 14%. Spain, 9%. Peru, 2.7%. Italy, 14%. Chile, 1.6%. Iran, 4.4%. Germany, 4.7%. Canada, 8.5%. France, 18%. And Saudi Arabia, 0.75%. So here comes my question. How can we have such a difference with the same disease? Is it possible? Great Britain, 14%. United States, 5%. So where do we find these numbers? I'm sure that we will know what happened exactly in 1 year from now, when we'll be able to really count how many people were really sick. And then we will really have the mortality rate. And that will change a lot the way we look at COVID. Because until we have a vaccine and until everybody's vaccinated, because that's a huge work, it will take at least 1 year or 1.5 years. Now continuing. A lot of people are talking about the second wave. Now what does that second wave mean? Will we have it? Well, let's analyze a few numbers. They're saying, and I read it in the news, that in China, in Beijing now, they're absolutely worried. They're terribly worried because they have 137 new cases. How many inhabitants in Beijing? 20 million people. Now, can we talk about a second wave? Can we talk about a spike in cases when we have 137 new cases in a city of 20 million people? This is why I try to understand numbers, and we have to stick to the numbers. All countries have gone through numbers and not politics. They've made a great job. So of course we need to worry. 137 cases, that's a small amount of new cases. We have to be careful. They cannot go up. We have to be careful, and that's the main issue, being careful with numbers and looking at what happens. But we cannot talk about a second wave when we have 137 new cases in a city of 20 million people. Of course, that can go up to 1,000, 10,000, etc. But it has not gone there yet. Shall we have a second wave? Eventually. If we do have a second wave, we will need to see a lot more cases, not 137. That's not a second wave. Now, let's analyze all the numbers, which give us an idea of the seriousness of the disease. How many deaths we have for 1 million inhabitants. USA now 369, Brazil 236, Russia 56, Great Britain 628, Spain 606, Italy 572, France 454, and Germany 107. That means that even in the US, where we have now 369, we're far away from Great Britain, which is almost a double. Far away from Spain, which has 606. And what about Brazil? What can we think? Well, Brazil is not one country. It's a lot of countries inside one country. Amazonian region is totally different from what we have in the southern. So we need to look case by case, region by region, city by city. As I told you, in Sao Paulo, numbers are stable. So at least for people who live in Sao Paulo with private insurance, absolutely no worry. Regarding the population in Sao Paulo, the city of Sao Paulo, do we need to worry? We're stabilized. So that's a very good thing. Regarding Brazil, rising and rising a lot. So that's a matter of concern for Brazil as a whole. But for the city of Sao Paulo, we're fine. As we live in Sao Paulo, this is what matters. What can we do regarding the rest of Brazil? We need to be careful, watch the numbers, and of course, get worried because it's rising and it's rising very fast. I remember a month ago, United States were almost at 300, but we were at 95. Now we've more than doubled this because it's 236. USA, they were around 300, now they're around 370. Still rising. And regarding Europe, cases have just 2 or 3 deaths more per million inhabitants, so they're stabilized. These are the news that I wanted to give you. You'll see the numbers on my webpage. There you'll be able to analyze all this. Thank you.